Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Small Success Podcast. My name is Pam Downing. I'm the Operations and Marketing Strategist here at Larison Media. And everyone, I am really excited for today. We're bringing you a really special episode. We have an extraordinary guest in our studio. But before I introduce who is in studio with me, let me introduce my co-host, Mr. Drew Larison.
Hey everybody, Drew Larison here, founder and creative director of Larison Media. And as always, Pam, thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Really glad you're back. And Drew and I are not alone. As I mentioned, we have a special guest in studio with us, Dr. David Rink from Indiana University Kokomo. Welcome. So glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
So, Dr. Rink, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. Tell us your story.
I was born and raised on a farm in northern Indiana, and my mother was a school teacher. And she had two older aunts or sisters that were also school teachers.
Okay.
And while college was never forced upon us by our parents, it was just kind of expected. And it was business that I was most interested in.
Okay.
Well, back in the mid-'60s, the different major universities in Indiana were divided according to, like Ball State, for example, it was architecture.
Okay.
Indiana University at Bloomington was business, and of course Purdue then was the
engineering.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Went blank there. For
You're good.
And so I had to go to Indiana University at Bloomington.
Okay.
However, with 45,000 students, and my class was only 34 students in high school. I mean, I was a little nervous.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Sure.
And fortunately, my mother learned that at IU South Bend, they had a 2-year program. And, of course, they had the different regional areas that had the 2-year program. And then when you graduated from there, you went to Bloomington as a junior and finished up your degree. And that was the best thing that could have happened to me because I didn't have large-size classes.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
300, 400, 500.
It was a smaller step
Yes.
than what IU
And I learned a great deal in that process because you had faculty you could interact with, and they were interested in you developing. However, what was funny was when somebody asked me what I was going to do, I kind of went blank. And so I just thought back to my mother, and I'm thinking teaching.
Mm-hmm.
However, there was a very good individual who was a PhD candidate for Notre Dame who was teaching our basic economics class when I was a sophomore. And he pulled me aside one time because he was interested. He said, nobody's ever gotten my extra bonus questions correct. He said, how come you get it right? I said, I don't know. So then he asked me what I wanted to be, and I told him a teacher. And he said, you don't want to do that. And I said, huh?
Said the teacher.
Yeah.
You don't want to be a teacher.
No. He said, there's no money in it. I said, well, what should I do? What would you recommend? He said, business. And from there on, then, I was interested in business.
Interesting.
And so then transferred down to Bloomington, and it was still a shock even as a junior.
Sure.
I mean, the thousands of students. And
You said how big was your high school class?
34.
34.
That was the highest in the school's history.
Wow.
Yeah. And so to walk into that atmosphere of Bloomington, I mean, it was daunting even as a junior. I don't know how the freshmen handled it.
Yeah.
But again, it was a good experience. I was somewhat prepared. Wasn't prepared for the large size classes. And the faculty were certainly quite different because with large size classes you can't interact with every individual.
You have to do it differently.
But I was very fortunate there because there were some individuals, I call them mentors, who kind of pulled me aside as I was going through the different programs, and they encouraged me to go on for advanced degree work because I wasn't going to go beyond 4 years. And the next thing I knew, here's the assistant dean of the School of Business is talking to me, and I thought, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And he encouraged me because he said he'd heard good reports on me with regard to my teaching that I was filling in for a faculty member. And he said, have you thought about MBA? And I didn't think of that at all because you think of someone that's very intelligent.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? And I didn't put myself in that category. And he said, well, give it a try. You don't have anything to lose. So I did. And then when I was halfway through that program, some other mentors pulled me aside and they said, have you considered PhD work?
For those listening, he keeps making a like, what? Shocked face.
Yeah.
And I see them as super intelligent.
Yeah. I mean, you get the doctor word.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
They only give those to certain people.
That's right.
no kidding. And I just didn't see myself fitting in that role. However, again, the dean of the School of Business at Bloomington at that time, who, by the way, was also the secretary for the World's Children part of the United Nations. I've forgotten what it was. So, I mean, you're talking to some high-level individuals that are well-known. So we sat and we talked, and he helped me try to figure out which school to go to, and he advised me to go around and talk to these people. And then he said, you want to go back and you want to talk to the students without telling them you're there and find out what they think about the program. That was the smartest thing I could have done. And that's how I ended up at Arkansas, because there were Indiana people at Arkansas. And so I get to Arkansas, and of course but there were also some IU instructors or IU PhDs that were there instructing. And so I got to be close to one of these and then some others that followed up. And lo and behold, I mean, all of a sudden, next thing I know, I got a PhD.
Wow.
But very, very good experience, because you get a more close one-on-one with the faculty.
Well, there's less people trying to get that. Yeah.
Yes. And you learn to work how closely with these individuals. And you want to please them because you want to do well. And as a result, with the 3 individuals I had, because I only needed 3 people on my dissertation committee, I've thanked them all over the place, because obviously they were close mentors.
Sure.
And friends. And then I'm thinking, okay, they don't get any money for doing this extra work for the dissertation, helping me out. So the only way I could reward them was, one, publish things and put them on as co-publishers. And we did several of those things with each of the 3. And then at the same time, realizing there's something larger here, because I had people at the undergraduate level that were mentoring me. I had people at the MBA level mentoring me, and then now the PhD level. So I realized that I've got to repay them, all of them, by mentoring other people that are my students.
That's great.
And that's what I did.
Pass the buck.
And so as a result, I've had individuals who went into PhD programs, and I gave them some of the insights and, excuse the expression, tricks
Yeah.
to be able to swing it, because these aren't published anywhere that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Well, speaking of students that you mentor, 2 of our brand strategists here at Larison Media are former or current students of yours. And the classes where they've met you and interacted with you and been under your leadership are marketing classes. So I'd love to hear about your interest in marketing, how, marketing is under that business umbrella. Right. I'd love to hear about how your interest in marketing began, and your thoughts on marketing in general in the classes. And also, I mean, this is a triple question, but how have you seen marketing grow, develop, and change over the years since you were in college in the 60s?
It's kind of funny how I got into marketing, because like any undergraduate, you think of marketing as being advertising and selling. I didn't like either one of them.
Sure.
And so I took a general management degree from Bloomington.
Okay.
And remember when I was talking about the assistant dean and the dean of the School of Business at Bloomington? They were moving me on and wanted me to get a PhD, and I wasn't sure I wanted to, but the dean said, I have a friend at who's the dean of the School of Business in Muncie, and I know the marketing chair, and they need a marketing person. Would you be interested? Well, am I going to turn down the dean of the School of Business at Bloomington?
Yeah.
Don't say no to those people. Yeah.
And that's how I got started. And I knew within a semester that's what I wanted to do.
Interesting.
Wow.
And then the dean at Bloomington said, you need to do it at least 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I'm ready to go now. And he said, no, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And he was right.
Yeah.
But he said, don't go beyond 2 years, because if you do, you're never going to go into the PhD program.
Mm.
And I saw a lot of excellent people fall by the wayside because they didn't.
Sure.
So that's how I got into marketing.
What do you love about marketing?
Everything.
Everything.
I've done the marketing research. I've done the advertising. I've done the strategic market planning. I've done marketing management, basic marketing. I think that kind of sums it up.
In my head, my experience with marketing, which is nothing compared to yours, but I've always looked at marketing of having two sides, the creative side and then like the business side of marketing. Creative side is one I really love. I love the creative side of, I feel like I don't know if I was raised this way or it's just how I was born and made, but like I definitely am a creative person. I love creating things. I feel fulfilled when I'm creating things. Before you got here, we made, for everyone listening, there's this new app called TikTok. It's kind of blowing up on the internet. It's beginning a huge audience, and I love watching all the little creative videos. But we just made our first ever Larison Media TikTok, so it's been fun to do that. But like, I felt so fulfilled and happy creating that silly little video. Like my creative brain, I feel happy when I'm creating something. But there's also a part of me that loves the idea of business and like achieving things in business and growing things in business. And that's how I've always looked at marketing. There's that two sides. And like something I think we've said before with our advertising and marketing, I said, we are 100% creatives, 100% business. Because that's what it takes in my head to do advertising and marketing really well, is you have to be 100% both. Do you see that in your history of marketing and working in the world, that like the creative aspect is just as important as like the data and the research and all of those aspects as well?
Very definitely. And in fact, it's probably more important, especially now. Yes, I can do the presentations from the textbooks in the classroom, but like you said, I don't feel fulfilled and I don't feel like I'm helping the students if that's all I do. And so I always try to bring in outside stuff, my experience, and then from other courses and that kind of thing. And here's an interesting point that most people don't realize. We as faculty only contribute to the students' learning about 20%. 80% is what the students learn from interacting with one another.
It's interesting. Yeah. Great point.
And it's very
Which is very different in college compared to like a high school. I feel like those might actually be swapped in high school.
Good point. And it's really odd when you tell students that and they look at you like you're out of your mind. I said, no. And I said, and the other thing you don't realize, I said, when you make contributions and then you provide examples or you ask me questions, I said, it makes me rethink what I've thought I already knew. And that's one reason I like to do the basic marketing class, which is our M301. But if you were to go to Bloomington or West Lafayette or Columbus, Ohio, you'll find faculty like myself who are senior and tenured. They don't want to teach those classes because they think it's beneath them. Correct. But I tell the students, I said, you don't realize that how much I learned from you guys.
Yeah.
And I said, I feel like I'm stealing from you.
Yeah.
Because I take your examples and your ideas.
You should be paying tuition, basically.
And I go and spread that around to the other classes that I have, even to the MBAs.
God, that's so interesting to me because marketing, and you know this, which I mean, for people listening, how we met, you somehow heard about Larison Media locally, and just were very honest, like, hey, digital marketing is definitely an area I don't know much about. I think in your email you said like that's just nothing. I would love for you to come in and talk to our class and help out in that digital marketing area. That's how we originally met. But in my head, marketing is an area of business, probably more than any other area of business, that is constantly evolving and changing.
Oh, correct.
I define that. The reason for that is because advertising and marketing is really just based off one word, and the word is attention. Where are people paying attention? That is where you'll find marketers and advertisers. Finance part of business, accounting part of business, that type, it's kind of the same. It really hasn't changed much. You have revenue, you have expense, you have profit, right? That's that area of marketing. But within the area of business that's there, like financing, in the area of marketing, it's constantly changing. I love that you have that attitude, because there's a lot of people that have been doing this as long as you have that have very important roles in huge major companies that don't have that attitude.
Right.
And that's why you're seeing things like Sears closing. That's why you're seeing things like Blockbuster not existing. And here we have in Kokomo a marketing professional who has, you said 46 years?
Yes.
46 years of marketing experience, but you still, and we talked about this on another podcast, you still have that attitude of never stop learning. And I feel like that's such a crucial attitude to have in the world of advertising and marketing. Maybe not in the financial world, because it's all about just let's make profit, and figure out how to do it. But in that marketing world, you always have to have that attitude of never stop learning. I think I've put it in certain ways before. You can never be romantic about where you do your advertising. And a lot of people do. They fall in love with the paper because maybe they've done the paper for forever, or other platforms like that. It's like, well, this is how we've always done it. It's worked in the past. I love it. And with that love, that romance they get, they refuse to look at other things that are coming up.
Good point.
And that's just a dangerous place to be. And I love having you here because you're a person with a lot of experience in this world, but yet you do not have that stagnant attitude that a lot of people do.
It's like you said, you're always learning. And when you quit learning, you're going to be 6 feet under.
Yeah, right.
I don't want that option.
Yeah.
You were talking earlier about in a sense of the evolvement of marketing and how it continually evolves. And that's primarily because a good marketer is always looking at changing customers' needs and wants. And we're all different.
Yeah.
From day to day even. And for a successful marketer, and this is true for entrepreneurs and small business people, you got to stay on top of that. And you've got to look at what are people really wanting. Well, students would ask me, well, how do you find out? I said, you go talk to them.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, maybe talk to your customers. This crazy idea.
That's right.
And I understand the importance of the digital world and all the technology that's out there. But so many companies, what they're doing is they're sending out questionnaires through those avenues. Well, you don't really get a chance to talk to the person and find out and ask them additional questions.
Yeah. The follow-ups are really where it's important.
Exactly. Yeah. And how many times have you gotten things through the mail, email, whatever, and it was a survey and you didn't fill it out?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, most people don't. And I always tell the students, I said, a third of you are going to be entrepreneurs. And I said, the first thing you want to do is you want to find out what potential customers' needs and wants are. You got to start there. You just can't go out and create something and run with it.
Yeah.
And if it's something
What problem are you solving?
Bingo.
Yeah.
And if you think it's something you're good at, well, you may not be good at it because the potential customers don't want it. And you got to find out what they want.
Yeah. And you can, like you were saying, you always have to be finding out what they want.
Yes.
It's like I was saying about like romantic when it comes to, platforms or where people are paying attention, the exact same thing. Honestly, like romance and business should never mix, to be honest, unless it's like a online dating site or something like that. But, the idea of like being romantic about the product you have or the service you have and like never being open to changing or tweaking that product or service towards what people are paying attention to or towards what people are wanting and desiring. Right. That's a really dangerous place to be. And like you keep continually seeing that in our world too. People that are refusing to change how they've always done it because they have that stubborn, maybe American attitude of like, nope, it's worked. This is how we do it. If you're in a spot where your answer is no, because this is how we've always done it, that's just a dangerous place to be. Whether it's marketing, whether it's product research, whether it's anything in life, basically.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a dangerous place to be.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I bring up in the class very early on, and thank goodness the marketing textbooks do this, but they don't take it to the next level, is what we call the marketing concept. And you start off with customers' needs and wants, which is what you got to find out first. And then the middle step is getting the whole firm or organization thinking that way. And that's the most difficult step.
Like vision casting, is that what you're really, that type of idea?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you got the finance people who are wired one direction.
Yeah.
Okay, you got the production people that are wired this direction. And it's kind of like herding cats. And the marketing person has to bring them together. And I tell the students, I said, how many are going to be marketing majors? Well, you kind of get a few putting their hands up, kind of make you feel good. And I said, look, you've got a double duty. They look at me kind of funny. And I said, okay, you first got to do marketing internally within the organization before you go outside.
Yeah, right.
Because if you can't sell the other functional areas to
You'll
work
never
together,
sell.
it won't work outside. And so I said, don't think you're going to stay in the organization inside without going outside.
Yeah.
But you got to do the inside stuff first and get everybody on board and doing the same thing. Now, the goal or objective is in finance, accounting, they talk it's profit. No, it is not profit. I keep telling the students, and they're finally getting it now, the goal is customer satisfaction. You satisfy your customers better than the competition,
Profit's going to happen.
profit's going to happen. You got it. I said, you're going to get sales. You're going to get market share. You're going to get all those wonderful things. And then that's the basic. But I said, and I haven't seen a textbook yet that touches on this next part. I said, okay, what did you start with? Customers. What'd you end with? Customers. Does that mean it's linear? The light bulbs come on. No, it goes around. It never stops, just like you said. And I said, okay, are you the same now when you walked into this classroom? Or didn't say that right, did I? Are you the same now as when you walked into the classroom? They said, well, no. I said, that's it. Customers' needs and wants are constantly changing. So that is not linear. It is rising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is rising. So I use the example of, say, okay, how many of you bought a car? Well, it's a used-up beater, obviously, because they can't afford it. Right. And I said, okay, what's your goal when you get a good job? Well, I'm going to get a better car. Circular.
Yeah.
It's going up. And as an entrepreneur, as a small business person, you've got to be continually aware of that, just like you said earlier. Customers' needs and wants are constantly changing. They want more. And if you don't provide it,
More and better at all times.
and if you don't provide it, where do you think they're going to go?
Somewhere else that is.
Somewhere else. And that's what gets entrepreneurs and small businesses in trouble. They don't realize it. They don't take the time to go down and talk to the customers. I said, I might get myself in trouble by saying this.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
You're going to edit this out, right?
Depends what you say. We'll see.
Okay, I'll use a hypothetical, like a good lawyer. I have seen in many schools of business who reached a plateau and they didn't grow any further. And the reason they did that was I don't think they wanted to hear what the students were saying about them. I've conducted focus groups at different schools in my own area. And as one of my colleagues hypothetical colleagues in finance or accounting or some other area would say, well, they're going to bitch. I said, that's what I want them to do.
Yeah.
Because how else are we going to find out what we're doing wrong and then fix it? In one school, hypothetical school.
May or may not exist. There's no way of knowing at this point.
When we did this, the students overwhelmingly said, we want more international courses, international marketing courses. And that's what we did, hypothetically. And things just went through the roof.
Wow.
Imagine that.
Enrollment-wise. Yeah.
It's that rising. Enrollment goes through the roof.
And I still keep bringing that up, and it's like falling on deaf ears. So I don't say it anymore. Hypothetically, of course.
I mean, that the layer of like school of business, and that maybe you're teaching that in the class, but the actual school of business isn't listening to it as a whole is really interesting. But it proves the point too. It's almost good. It's good ammo for you because it's proving your exact point in real terms, in real life.
Well, I love this. I love talking about this from a small business perspective too. I mean, as we've chatted about the Small Success Podcast, we exist for small business owners. And it's such a great reminder, and we haven't talked about it in a while, is that the goal is customer satisfaction when it comes to your marketing. And for small business owners, whether it's clients or customers, and depending on your industry, if you're a restaurant owner and your passion is cooking, you may get swallowed up in the kitchen, and it's been 5 years since you've actually talked to your customers and asked them, what do you like? What do you not like? And there's some risk in there. Some of those conversations could be difficult. You may hear things that you don't really like hearing, but that's how you know how to improve. It's that rising concept. I love that. How to get better, and more, how to give your customers something better and something more. That's great.
This concept it's life. I mean, take this out of business.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I'm thinking like in my marriage, in my like part of being a dad. I mean, but when we have, I don't know, employee reviews, whatever you want to call them here, or like just a conversation happening with me and one of my employees. One question I always like asking is, what am I doing that you love? What am I doing that you want me to stop doing? And like just having that two basic questions. And like that's led to really good conversations. And sometimes I'm not stubborn enough and I actually change the things they ask me to stop doing. But like just two basic questions can change things in a big way. But I mean, that, like I said, like that's life. I mean, I should ask my wife that. Yeah. Hey, with you person that I live with and I'm like raising children with and I've committed my rest of my life with, what are some things that you like that I'm doing? What are some things that you wish I didn't? And
that's
like
a long list.
Risky question. Yeah.
Well, it's risky no matter what, scenario you're in, but it's extremely important. We talk a lot about the idea of like failing and noticing and recognizing your failure. And the whole goal of doing that and having a conversation of failure is to learn and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Same type of thing we're talking about, but we're talking like maybe big business decisions rather than, like I should pick up my socks, or something like that at home, but it's important nonetheless.
I think with the big businesses, which you touched on earlier, I think they're lethargic. And you look at the age of the individuals at each level as you go up. They're getting older and older.
Yeah.
And they don't want to change because this is the way we always did it.
They just want to ride out in the sunset and not have to work hard on change.
And like some of the firms you just mentioned, that's what caused problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Back on that marketing concept idea I was talking to you about, and it circulates and it goes up. I sent that idea off to one of the co-authors of our textbook we use in M301. He loved it.
Great.
Because I don't know any marketing textbook that uses this and even brings it out.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to use it in the next revision.
That's great.
It's amazing, first off, because textbooks, I can see them being very maybe stubborn, but like is the word, you know what I'm saying? Nope, we wrote the book. We worked really hard on it. How dare you even request something? But like good for them to not only just hear it, but going back, like they should be sending out surveys to every teacher that is using those textbooks. Hey, the world's changing. You read through this textbook with your students. What should be added? What were some of your students' feedback of something they wish they were in there? And just putting it out there. Yeah, sure. It'll be a hard conversation because you're critiquing the work they probably spent a lot of time on, and maybe stuff they're asking, like you don't even know how to put it in a textbook because you don't have that knowledge. But it's important conversations nonetheless.
I tell my students there are no dumb questions. I've asked them all. and I said, you're not going to be successful in everything you do. I said, I learn more from my failures than I do my successes.
Yeah. Your successes happen because of what you've learned in your failures. But the whole dumb question, especially going back to like what I was saying, the creative world, you think of some maybe of like the biggest marketing and advertising campaigns of all time. I have one in my head, but who the heck came up with these things? And they turned out to be brilliant. They blew up. Do you remember the Budweiser TV ad? It probably happened like in a Super Bowl with the frogs.
Right. That's just what I was thinking of.
How drunk was the person that came up with the idea? Like, all right, hear me out. Like 4 frogs sitting around a swamp. Bud. Why? You know exactly what I'm talking about. So like, especially in the creative world, there are no dumb questions. There are no dumb ideas. Just create and create something different and funny and something that's going to catch someone's attention no matter what platform it's being put out on. But like, how, like, hear me out. You know, like how many creative meetings started with like the sentence, all right, this might sound crazy, but hear me out.
That campaign's probably 15, 20 years old.
Yeah, and there's no way I was drinking beer when that came out, but I still remember it. Yeah,
and we all still remember it.
But that's the other thing in a sense of coming up with the ad. Having worked with an ad agency for a while, I found out that what they do is they just don't throw it out there once they create it. Mm-hmm. They bring in individuals that are similar to the population they want to reach. Yeah. We call it a focus group.
Yeah.
And they run the ads by them.
Well,
and then you make the changes.
100% creative, 100% business.
Bingo.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it is. It's those two worlds combined. And if the business doesn't work, guess what they do? Go back to the creative board.
Right.
And create something else.
The one thing that we had a client was Wrigley's at the ad agency, and they were trying to figure out
the gum company?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
How do we reach youngsters? And so they started talking to youngsters. Okay. And they found out the youngsters. Now, this was before you had non-tobacco chewing baseball pitchers, right? Yeah. And the youngsters, particularly the young men, wanted to be like those guys. But obviously the parents wouldn't allow the tobacco.
Yeah.
Well, what Wrigley did in their creatives, in the advertising agency, the creatives came up with the idea, let's take just regular sheet bubble gum and shred it.
Big League Chew.
So, Big League Chew.
I know exactly, yeah.
And then they said, okay, now how are we going to package this thing?
The exact same way chewing tobacco is.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Love it.
And that's what they did. And it was a tremendous success.
Yeah. Still is. It's still out there.
Yes.
Which is interesting because culture has changed.
Sure.
Yes.
And there's a big, clapback on the tobacco industry. And that is still successful.
Well, I really bet. I mean, it's still for sale. I mean, you can still find it everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
I bet, though, kids that pick it up have no idea what chew is.
That's true.
But they're still buying it because it's unique, it's different.
Yeah.
And, like, honestly, as a kid, it's theirs, but, like, it's the packaging alone. It's not just little strips of gum. Right. A kid could shove a 5-pound thing of bubble gum in his mouth and probably enjoys it that way, too.
Right.
But, yeah, that's a great example of like what I was talking about, 100% creative, but using the data analytics, like, hey, we've got younger kids that want to be like these people.
Correct.
Well, I don't know, talk to the creative people. And they came out with that. Did you ever watch Mad Men? The TV show? You heard of it? My goodness, I want to watch it with you.
Yeah.
So it was this TV show on AMC called Mad Men, and it was all about the ad world in New York City in the 1960s.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite shows in the world. Well, one, because it's the same. I play drums, and it's the same reason I love that one movie that came out all about a drummer, because I feel like there's never movies about drummers. They're always about lead singers and guitarists. So I'm like, oh, one for me. Let's watch it. But the same way, like you never hear stories of advertisers. You just see their product. You never see like what the world's like behind it. Right. And it's this, it's completely fictional show, but like it's all about what that world was like. And I feel like you would just love it. It's a fantastic show.
It's based in the 60s.
Yeah, it's like 70s? The late 50s, early 60s, getting in the 70s. But like, it's just the pitch meetings. It made me think, we're talking about like tobacco, like tobacco, advertising tobacco. One of the episodes is the Surgeon General warning comes out. So now you have this ad agency, their largest client is a tobacco company. What the heck do we do now? There's like the government is telling people not to use our product. But it was just, I feel like you'd love it because you've been doing this for so long. Okay. You'd love it. So.
I really wasn't a big believer in focus groups to begin with. I thought it was a waste of time. And then working with the ad agency, that's when I became aware of the importance of it.
Yeah.
And what really sold me on that was one of the accounts they had was Anheuser-Busch. And I don't remember which Augie it was. It may have been number 3 or I lost track. But he had taken an extended trip in Europe. And again, this is back in the late 60s, early 70s. And when he came back, he said, we got to have a Euro beer. Well, there were no Euro beers here in this country at that time. And so the ad agency put together some different terms to describe the different kinds of aspects of beer. Now, I'm not a beer drinker, so you got to help me out here. But the aftertaste, the color, the head, what else would be some characteristics of beer that would be important?
I mean, those are the main ones, I guess. Okay. Yeah.
So anyway, they created 10 different scenarios of different adjectives describing what this thing would look like. because they didn't have a product yet. And they had focus groups. They went through 20 focus groups. That's $5,000 a pop.
100, which
Wow.
back then was that's a lot of dollars being spent
Tremendous
before a
amount of
product is created. Keep that in your mind. No product has been made yet in this process.
That's right.
Yeah.
And here's the interesting part. Of course, you had the smoked windows, glass, and you could one-way mirrors and all that stuff. And here I'm conducting this focus group of 10 or 12 gentlemen, and we had them commenting on this. And then we had them rate the 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, behind the one-way glass mirror, you had some account executives from Anheuser-Busch. You had our top agency people. And they had a little contest going as to seeing, okay, we think they're going to pick this one. No, we think they're going to pick this one. Now, at the time, the advertising agency had one of the most extensive collections of data on customers in all kinds of areas I've ever seen. And of course, Anheuser-Busch was at the very top at that point with data information. They had to be. You know what? They both missed it.
Interesting.
And that's what convinced me right there. You've got to go
the
to
importance of it.
Customer.
Yeah.
You know, you bring up a really good point. And in our world at Lyris Media, what we focus on is digital, all things digital. But there's that human element that we will never not need. Or another way, you've got to stay in touch with people, even a phone call. And as social media continues to grow and marketing dollars continue to be pushed more towards the digital space, it's such a great point. People matter. That's why social media was invented, was another way to connect people. But nothing will ever, what we're doing now. I mean, it's funny because you, as a podcast listener, are not looking at our faces, but the conversation that we're having now, that matters. Getting focus groups feedback and chatting with your customers one-on-one if you're a small business owner, asking those follow-up questions. A survey, whether it's a written survey or a digital survey, that can't replace it. Because the question, what do you think about this? Well, checking a box is one thing, but getting someone's facial expressions and well, I really like this, but I drank that beer when I was having whatever it may be. That's a great point to keep in the forefront in whatever you're doing. If you're a small business marketer, on the marketing team at a big company, whatever it is, it's a great point. People matter.
Two of my main things I love about digital marketing are, one, I believe the efforts that a company can put into digital, if done well and right, will lead to so much face-to-face. It's the door to get someone to actually want to have a face-to-face with you. I am not a believer that face-to-face should go away or shouldn't happen. I believe digital is the welcome mat to a face-to-face connection.
It's a tool.
Yes.
Nothing more.
Exactly. And the second thing I really love about digital marketing, specifically the social media world, is that I think more than ever, companies, agencies, whoever is doing it, have an opportunity to what we call humanize your brand in a way that has just really never been able to be done. And you talk about we talked a lot about consumers' expectations are changing, their wants and needs are changing. People want a humanized brand more than ever, I feel like. And with social media, you're able to do that. One of the things we do at Lyris Media is we manage social media profiles for a lot of small businesses. So one of the hardest things about that is to find out what that human version of that brand is. Because we're working with a lot of companies, and we've got to come up with, if this company was a little person, a little drawing, a character or whatever, what would they look like? What would they sound like? What vibes would they put off? And when we're responding to comments, when we're responding to messages, all those different interactions that have reviews, whatever the interaction is, we have to keep that person in mind. We have to keep that character in mind. And that's such a powerful thing. One, that we're able to talk to consumers like this, very quickly. The feedback is right there. Engagement is right there. But two, we're able to take this company and make them into a human being to where when that consumer is interacting and engaging with it, they feel like they're talking to a human, not a company. Right. And it's a powerful thing. And that just can't happen in a lot of other ways of media, which is very powerful.
By the same token, once you get that figure, descriptive picture, whatever, you got to continually interact with the customers because the customers change their needs and wants. So that picture or that figure representing the company may have to change. Because think of the Michelin Man, for example. Now, that came out of France. And if you go back and look at him originally, I mean, he looks like he's on steroids. But they slimmed him down when they brought him to the States.
Interesting.
And that's just one example.
Yeah. Well, that's constantly happening.
Yeah. And if you notice with the Michelin ads, they never really talk that much about their tires. You see him, you know what he is, you know what he sells, and what you see is things that customers are concerned about. What I remember is where it's raining.
Always have that image in my head.
Comes around,
a tree falls in the road or something like that. Yeah.
And he's throwing the tires out there. Well, he doesn't have to say anything. You know, it's safety.
Basically, they've built a superhero.
Bingo.
They've played the role like Marvel Comics, and they've built a superhero for your car.
And people buy into that because they remember it when they were kids.
Yeah.
That's right.
God, I could talk for you forever. It's fun. Which I am. I'm coming into your class, I think 2 classes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure he know when class time ends.
It's fun. No,
it's when the students leave.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Or not. It was just whenever you and I leave.
Yeah, that's right. So I'd love to hear from your perspective and with your experience in mind, what are some of the challenges in marketing? And this could be traditional marketing as we think of it, like print marketing, it could be social media marketing. What are some challenges that a marketer would face?
I think this is true of any level, but particularly for the entrepreneur and the small business firm, is how do you figure out how to use the technology that is out there to reach your customers?
Good. Yeah. Good. Great point.
And then you got to break down the technology because some people want to be contacted one way and some others.
Yeah.
And again, now you're back to target marketing. And you may have several different targets. Maybe this group wants to be kept in, maybe it's just the website is all they want to see. Over here, you may have someone that is interested in one of the other types of social media. And those are 2 different groups.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then follow up with then different kinds of messages.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if you're talking about Twitter, what is it, 200?
They just bumped it to 80. They doubled it. It was 140 and now it's 280.
Okay.
Right?
And
they doubled it. Yeah.
And that's different than a website, which you can do more and you can show videos and things like that, which interest a lot of people. So,
or what we're doing now, a podcast.
Correct.
Unlimited space. We could talk for 70 hours. I mean, like that's how much I have 72 hours left on my SD card.
I don't know. Challenge accepted, Drew.
But I mean, yeah, a lot what you're talking about. I hear talking about like a just universal campaign, you know, where it's a big thing, definitely in the small business world, because they desire to be everything and everywhere.
Right.
A big reason why we're digital marketing because we are 100% small business. We are sold out for that hustler, that small business owner. That's who we desire to serve for the rest of our eternity. When it comes to being everywhere in the world we're in, that's extremely expensive.
Oh, yeah.
It's to be in the newspaper, to be on radio, to be doing Google ads, to be doing Facebook ads, to be paying an agency to do whatever it is. It's a huge budget you need. In the reality that the small business world is in, they can't do it.
Nope.
So the biggest reason why we do digital, one, it goes back to what I was saying about attention. I believe this is where the mass amount of attention is being paid. People listening, I'm holding up my phone. It's right here. Yeah. This is where we go to escape. It used to be Roy Rogers around a radio. I mean, it's been a lot of ways, but like we do digital because we feel like when it comes to a small business owner's budget, we want to be respectful as much as possible. Where they're spending their dollars is where it's efficient, it's effective and efficient. We want to make sure it's where the mass amount of attention is.
Right.
Perfect world, abso-freaking-lutely. They could be everywhere. They should be everywhere, you know. But like in the real world, That's not possible for the average small business owner. They just don't have the budget for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to be smart, you know.
The other thing, too, is, and you probably do this, a lot of the small business people are not that knowledgeable of social media.
Well, we always say
so
it's
you're
time,
educating
too.
them.
It's time. You know, to do social media well, it takes a lot of time. To do anything well, it takes time. Really, I tell people, like, time is one of the biggest reasons companies like ours exist. Social media owners wear 7 to 10, 15 hats a day.
Correct.
And if we can take a few of those from them to make their life easier, and they can double down on what their actual strength is and let us double down on what ours is, good things happen.
Right.
You know? So, I mean, it's time. Time is a huge thing. There's only 24 hours in a day, which can spar off to a whole other conversation about leadership and like self-awareness of noticing where your strengths are. And, you know, if you're a restaurant owner and a chef, and really the only thing you love about what you do is being a chef, in the world we're in, there are companies that you can outsource everything else to.
Sure.
And be successful in that way.
And it's inexpensive for the small business person, small firm, to be able to rely on you as kind of a consultant, kind of an outside agency, if you will.
Yeah.
Because, you know, okay, so they want to just do the cooking. All right, fine. You can still come in and do what you do, the little character that you're talking about developing, and the ad, you do the focus groups, you help them, and you point it out to them. And 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to say, okay, go ahead, after they find out how much it's going to cost.
Sure.
But if it's digital, it's going to be a lot less than TV, radio, or whatever.
As of right now, it won't be in the future, but as of right now, it's it's a darn deal.
Then the
right
next
now.
part, which is really critical for the small business person, is they want to see results.
That's right.
Well, you're going to get it quicker through digital. And
People listening, this is from the guy who's done traditional his entire life,
yeah,
and he knows it.
yeah, and that's what they're going to be concerned about. But again, it's not profit, and that's hard to sell to a small business person. It's customer satisfaction.
Well, it's in the world they're in.
good
It's
point.
branding,
Yes,
and it's such a hard thing to measure. But the idea and purpose behind your brand in the world we're in is so important.
yeah, it's how they see you.
Yeah,
And you got to find out, because maybe they're seeing you in a way you don't like.
yeah,
Maybe it's not what you intended.
yeah.
And that's hard to turn things around once people got an impression of you.
Yeah. I've talked about it in the podcast before, but I define a lot of times, especially in the small business world, advertising, marketing, and branding. A lot of people look at those as like the exact same thing. It's the same conversation. I've defined it. I haven't said this before in the podcast, but advertising is short game. Marketing is long game. Branding is the game to me. And I define branding as simply as what people think about your company.
Right.
What vibe, what reaction do they get when they see your logo
Yep.
or hear your company name?
Yep.
And that branding is so important because there's so many more companies than there ever have been that have the exact same power advertising wise as the big, the giant corporations.
Right.
So the brand is so important. Unfortunately for us, it's the hardest to prove ROI from, but it's massively important.
And one of the things I tell students is, I don't care if you're a large size firm, medium size, small size, just starting out, you get one chance. And that's it.
Yeah.
Because consumers can go elsewhere.
There's so many more options.
Yeah. And so you got to get it right the first time. You just can't willy-nilly throw something together overnight and throw it on the wall and see if it sticks. The world's changed, like you said.
Yeah, but also at the same time, if you got one chance, you also have a million chances because, that one's scrapped, I can start another one. Because in the world we're in, it's so easy to start something new.
Right.
Yeah.
But get it right the first time. And how do you get it right? You talk to the customers.
You care. And we keep talking about like the most common sense thing of like, talk to your customers. In my head, the people that aren't, it's the ones that probably they don't care. Deep down, maybe they'll say they do, but because who wants to be the person that says I don't? But if you do, you're talking to them. You're talking to them a lot.
Remember the marketing concept thing I was talking about? And I said the second one was the hardest one, trying to get the rest of the firms, groups together.
Yeah.
They did a survey, and it's been several decades ago, but what they found out was when they asked them how many of the large companies do the marketing concept, well, they obviously all said they did. But in reality, when surveyors went back and checked,
They did part of it, but not all of it.
only 55% did it. So where are the other 45%? Well, they're in the marketing Boot Hill cemetery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question about your concept, and it's interesting to me because as you describe it, it's circular, it's
it
rising.
rises.
It's never
To
ending.
me, like the image that's coming to my mind is a tornado. And with this, okay, stay with me, because with the tornado analogy, as it circulates and rises, it becomes more powerful, right? I wonder if that translates to your concept as well.
Good idea.
About
I'll keep it in mind.
Yeah, keep it. Let me know if the textbooks pick that up, because as it's circulating and as it's rising, I just wonder if like that also attributes to success or sales or higher satisfaction or whatever that end goal is.
Well, it would. You'd have higher sales. You'd have higher retention.
The
You'd
more
have
you
profit. Yeah. Of course, the other part of the analogy we got to throw out is it's not destructive.
Yeah, it's not destructive. It's a positive. It's a tornado of positivity. That's
Tornado of positivity. That's the kind of tornadoes I want.
Yeah.
But that's right. I hadn't thought of it that way, because it does increase all the way around. Because if you have a good experience, Pam, with a particular product, I mean, you're going to share that with your closest friends,
Yeah.
right? And your closest friends are going to do what?
They'll try it out.
They'll try it out.
Right.
Now, what did it cost that firm advertising-wise to get your friends?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, word of mouth will always.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I'll compete with a lot of other platforms, a lot of different strategies, a lot of different ideas, but something we will never be able to compete with is word of mouth.
Yeah.
Now, the cool thing about social media is it can turn word of mouth and plug some steroids into it. You know, because,
Yeah,
back in the day,
good
word
point.
of mouth was Susan telling Jill over coffee. Now, Susan's posting something on Facebook, and there's 700 Jills that could also see it if done well. I mean, that's just recognizing the power of how being. Who was it? One of our clients dropped some awesome wisdom to us once, and it was the idea of, if you want to be the best at something, you have to be the best every single day. And you want to talk about like the power of word of mouth. If you're just the best of something one day, maybe you'll get some good word of mouth, that day. But if you're not the next, that can be switched as well. And that word of mouth good, maybe the day before, could be word of mouth negative. And there's some stat, people are so much more likely to say something or to share something a negative experience wise than they are good. Right. So you just constantly have to be the best, or striving to be. And if you didn't, you have to be open about it and admit it and apologize and move forward from there every single day.
And what you're talking about is very, very true, because what larger firms have found they're having to do with the social media is to have a large in-house group of experts that I've hired who monitor that constantly.
Yeah.
You're talking 24/7 here to do just that, to stay on top of things. Now you got me thinking in the sense of, what is that poor small firm entrepreneur going to do? They can't afford someone like that. I wonder if there are firms out there who are like consultants who are willing to take on the small business person. I don't know. I'm just asking.
That's us.
That's us.
That's what
Is
we
it?
do.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, what you're describing, like what we do for a lot of small businesses, obviously 24/7 is kind of like a dream thing. It's happening 24/7, but no one is going to be able to monitor that unless you, I don't know, using,
If you're employing people around the clock.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's what we do for a lot of people. We're constantly watching their content that we've created. What I like to say is we create, publish, and monitor daily content.
Okay.
For their social media. So like all those reviews coming in, comments coming in, messages coming in, we're there kind of like as a customer service line to take that from that customer or the small business owner and handle that for them.
Now, how do firms like yourself then get that information out to all these small businesses out there? Because there are tons of these guys.
That's what we're trying to figure out right now.
I mean, honestly, this podcast is a way. We're looking at this podcast as an awesome way to provide a lot of value to our target audience, which is small business owners.
Okay.
And hopefully enough, we're adding that value. We're putting content out there to hopefully they think more of us after listening to this podcast and added value to where they might actually be interested in using us.
Now, in the sense of your own firm here, then, do you have like quotes and things of that sort from successes with small
testimonials?
Testimonials?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Because that obviously is a thing to get out to the area that you're trying to reach. Mm-hmm. And, of course, that would vary in a sense of, well, what is this small firm in? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, is it a service? Is it a product? Is it both? Yeah,
we work with a lot of agencies work with like niche markets, right? So you'll have like a marketing company that just works with restaurants, or a marketing company that just works with hospital. I mean, whatever the industry is. If there's an industry, there's 10 marketing companies that service just that industry. Okay. We work with everybody. You know, that's something. Now, there's certain niches that we have more of than others,
right?
But we can help really any type of industry. And I've always said in the past, that's probably selfishly because I'm a hobbyist-ish type of mind. I like knowing a little bit about a lot of things. As an educator, you probably understand that, and you're the same type of way. So that led to like, no, I want to work with a restaurant. Oh, I want to work with a bank too. Oh, there's a butcher shop. That'd be fun. You know, like in my head bounces. I like know a little bit about a lot of different industries, but there's definitely certain industries we work with more than others.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, we're doing it right now. We're trying to provide value to small business owners in the conversation of owning a small business, leading a small business, marketing for a small business, all those type of things, and hopefully that they'll see value in us. Yeah.
You talk about small businesses. One of the things I get once in a while is a student needs 3 hours, and they want to do an independent study. And I said, okay, see if you can find a small firm, and it can be profit, nonprofit, whatever. And I give them a 2-page list of a business plan, a marketing plan. And I tell them to work with the company and develop this. Well, these small firms have never done this. And so it's kind of a challenge for them.
Yeah.
But the student learns so much from it, but obviously you get the benefit for the firm.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because
it's an internship type of thing.
Exactly. They've never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
But it brings up things to them. So to a small firm or an entrepreneur that wants to start off, while we talked about look at customers and things of that sort, you first of all want to go through this plan and get that all detailed out. Because if you need to borrow money from a bank, they're going to want to see that anyway.
You're talking about just a general business plan. Yeah.
And so that's where you have to sit down and kind of think it through instead of just jumping into it.
Yeah.
Well, and it forces, in a positive way, the small business owner to really reflect on some of those high level questions when, if you're a small business owner, it can become very easy to just focus on the task that's right in front of you. You know, we've got to pay rent this month, or whatever it is. I've got to get these products made. So having someone sit down, a student, that's great, because what a learning experience for both parties. You know, you're having that conversation and thinking through those high level things. That's a little bit of what we do when we take on a new client. We're asking them, what are your goals? What's your brand voice? What Drew referenced, someone who owns a pizza place will have a very different brand voice than a dental office.
I'd hope so, at least.
I don't know. I may want to visit the dentist that has the same brand.
You get a free slice after each cleaning or something like that.
Well, one of the most interesting experiences I had with a student was in an MBA class, and he was a finance person. And you kind of already mentioned a general outlook, the way they view things.
Yeah.
Accountants the same way.
As you said, they're wired differently. Yeah.
And he came up to me after one class, and he kind of looked dejected. I said, well, what's wrong? I'll use his name, Mike. And he said, well, I'm working for a small firm, and the owner wants me to develop a marketing plan. What do I do? So
do I still use spreadsheets for that, or how do I?
Now this is back in 2008 when the economy was going south. So I opened a textbook and I said, "Here are the 2 pages. Work on this." And he said, "Well, he wants it by tomorrow." I said, "Okay, give him a basic approach to marketing. Do the marketing concepts."
Yeah.
Okay. and just take my notes. You got my lecture notes. Just take those and just put them in PowerPoints. So he left kind of dejected. And a week later, he come back, and he was beaming. I didn't know the guy could smile. And I said, did you get fired? And he said, no, the boss loved it. He wants more. Now what do I do? I said, well, you go to the third week lecture.
Yeah.
And you present that. So he did. He came back. He was even smiling bigger. He said, they want me to be the marketing manager.
Oh, my gosh.
They don't have a marketing department.
Wow.
They really are hiring you, not him at this point.
Yeah.
And it was funny because he leapfrogged his boss into a managerial position.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. And they doubled his salary.
Wow.
That's when the economy is going down.
Yeah.
So then by the end of the semester, the firm wanted him to hire individuals to help him.
Oh, my gosh.
I haven't talked to him since, but I'd be shocked if he hadn't quadrupled his salary
Sure.
by now.
Wow.
And he doesn't have a staff of 4 or 5 people.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, of course, the owner wouldn't be doing this if he wasn't getting results.
Sure.
So obviously they're getting results here.
Made a
And so
difference.
it's very interesting to see. It was like a whole different person emerged from this pod over here. You know, here was this accounting finance type. And over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was exciting. I love seeing that.
That's good.
Transformative.
Yeah. Might have brought out some like actual self-awareness of that kid. Like, oh, wait, this is what I love doing.
Yeah.
You know, he might have gone down that track of like business, finance. That's what you have to do. But then he found out this whole creative aspect and the business aspect can be married, and it's called marketing.
And he had it.
Yeah.
He didn't know it.
Yeah.
Just like with me. I
That's
didn't
what I was
know
going to
could
say.
do
I
it.
hear a parallel here.
Yeah.
My mentors saw something in me I didn't see.
Yeah.
And it was a matter of just bringing it out. You bring up another point here. When I was at Bloomington, I was shocked at the number of individuals, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, who were majoring in certain areas. One was going to go into law. One was going to go into dentistry. One was going to go into MD. And I said, well, why? And he said, well, my dad, my grandfather. And I'm thinking, it's kind of sad when you think about it. Now, I was jealous because I knew what they wanted to do. I wasn't sure yet.
Sure.
So I was kind of envious in that regard. But you know how many of those guys ended up drinking, on drugs, and divorce?
Depressed.
Depressed?
Yeah.
Half of them.
Yeah.
Because they were following the lineage
Yeah.
Sure.
instead of following their own
Yeah.
path.
They thought their interests were genetic. It's not how interests work.
Good to call it that. It was
I'm in
sad.
marketing.
I felt sorry for the guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's happening all over. I mean, that still happens all the time. I mean, that's one of the craziest things about college to me is there are so many people that just go get a degree and then don't actually do anywhere near what their degree was. Right. I mean, it's a really, really high percentage of people that do that. Right. And they just go to go, you know, probably rack up a lot of debt just to go, you know, and it's a spot we're in right now in our country in general.
Yeah.
But.
Well, interesting position that college professors have, you know,
Yeah.
as
Yes.
mentors and
Yes.
as leaders of this. I mean, not always, but typically the younger generation coming up behind us, to play that role of a mentor and call things out in people that maybe they, you know, and if their brain is, I'm going to be a dentist because that's what all of the generations before me have done, but maybe, you know, maybe what they really
And
love
sometimes
is
that
art.
is true. Sometimes like your interest can be genetic
That's right.
of sorts, but like, a lot of times you can, you get into like, nope, this is what you're doing. This is what my father did. This is what my grandfather did. And it's a dangerous spot. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a daunting task, and you don't realize how important it is, not just for me, myself. That's the only way I can thank my mentors who've passed on to that big college classroom in the sky.
That's right.
But it's kind of scary in a way, all right? Because sometimes you have to pull the student aside, close the door, and say, look, can't say the word, can I?
I mean,
Once again,
go for
I
it.
don't know the word you're going for. Oh, okay. Yeah,
and you shake them up.
Yeah.
And you're not sure how they're going to react to that.
Yeah.
Okay? And so you have to kind of get to know them a little bit. And it's interesting because I seem to have a pretty good success rate, getting them off of where they're at and shaking them up. I don't want to say this because it's really not true because I'm not around them like your kids, all right? But it's kind of like they're your children when they're in your class.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And you want them to be successful. But how do you get them to be motivated that way?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a whole different story.
Motivation is a hard thing to inspire.
In one of your questions, you talked about what would be a recommendation for individuals. I don't care if it's small firm, large firm, degree, whatever it is, because this is what got me through. Determination, drive, positive attitude, and stick-to-itiveness.
That's great.
I've had a lot of people tell me that you're very driven. I said, well, yeah. And you're also determined. I said, yeah, that's got a bad side too, I hear. But you have to have it. But that positive attitude, you got to stick to it.
Do you think those things are possible if you're in a world that you're not passionate about?
Passionate's a good word.
Do you think that's possible?
I don't know, but you got
to be driven, to be all those things, the words you just said, if what you're doing isn't something that like really gets you out of the bed in the morning.
It won't work. It won't work.
Not for the long term.
No, it can for the short term. You're right, and very, very short term. Because then the longer you go, like those dentists that went on because of the generation thing.
Which dentist already is like one of the most depressing, I guess. I've heard that because you're just...
There's a statistic out there.
Yeah. It's the either second or highest suicide rate.
Yes, yeah. Like you better really love teeth if you're about to be a dentist.
And I asked the person who was telling me this, I said, well, why? And they said, well, it's because they feel like they're giving pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you're right. You gotta have the passion first. But if you really expect to be successful in the long term, I don't care if you're an entrepreneur, I don't care if you're a student, parent, whatever. You got to be able to do these things.
That's great.
Because if you don't,
you're
not going to be successful.
How do you define success?
I think that's more internal.
It's different for every person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously, I could make more money on the outside, in the real world of business. And I did do that for a while. But that satisfaction, internal, wasn't satisfied. If that makes any sense. I got more joy out of working with students, whether it's in a classroom setting, whether it's one-on-one. Okay, that's my passion. That's my enjoyment.
Yeah.
Now, there's the other side at the Hypothetical University.
Yeah, that other one. Yeah.
Committees. Oh.
That doesn't spark joy.
Yeah.
No. Now, interestingly enough here, you have a group of individuals, hypothetically,
Of course, yes.
that work very well together. And this hypothetical professor doesn't mind, hypothetically, working with these individuals because they want to get things done.
Yeah.
And they do. We had a hypothetical vice chancellor at a hypothetical university many decades ago. And
it continued to be funny for me. I'm still laughing at it.
He was so frustrated. He said, Dave, I can't get these other functional areas to do things on time. He said, you guys in business are the only ones that do it. He said, I don't know what to do. So I put my arm around his shoulder and I said, well, Bill, hypothetically, you just come to business with whatever your problems are and we'll take care of them.
Yeah.
He looked at me like I was out of my mind, but he knew I had a point.
Yeah.
Because we in business, hypothetical university, hypothetical business school, when we're given an assignment, we start right away on it. We get it done so we can move on to
What's next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All hypothetically, university, hypothetical other areas, most of them wait till the last minute. And then it's past the deadline. One of the associate dean,
Some fancy title.
Vice Chancellor, I think it was, of this hypothetical university, he made the comment one time. He said, I get tired of these floating deadlines. I said,
Floating
what?
deadlines.
He said, I'll set a deadline. You guys in business get it done way before the deadline. And most of the other areas don't. So he said, I got to change the deadline. Now, what does that tell the other people?
That there's not actually a deadline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they just keep going further and further back in time.
That's a live line, not a deadline.
But that could also relate to the small businesses.
Sure.
Like you said, person strong in cooking. Well, what they're going to focus is going to be on what? Cooking.
Sure.
They're not thinking about the other thing.
Yeah. And honestly, they shouldn't have to.
And they shouldn't.
I'm
no.
a big believer of that. They shouldn't have to. I mean, going back to what we were talking about, like defining success, and you said I easily, could work on the outside and make a lot more money. I heard somebody say the other day, it's the difference between a feeling and fulfillment. Those are two huge different words and huge different worlds that you can be in. Yep. When you work, like in your scenario, working for a large company on a market, like their marketing department or whatever, making a lot more money than you are, that feeling you get of I'm making more money. It's short, right? But fulfillment, like that's what's long term. Like that's what really matters. And those are two different words. You get a feeling and you get a fulfillment. And I think the faster people can figure that out, the longer they're going to have a life that they really enjoy.
Exactly. And they're going to be happy. They won't be drinking, doing drugs, divorce,
finding other escape methods.
Yeah.
Of all the different universities I've worked at, I have to say the School of Business faculty here is by far the best. And any one of them could go elsewhere and increase their salary by easily 30-40%. But they choose to stay here because there's kind of a family feeling among the School of Business faculty. And we're all in agreement in a sense of we want to help the students become the best possible students in their own areas that they can. And they're driven that way. Now, obviously, some students don't want to be driven.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. But the faculty have found ways to get their attention and maintain it, which is different. I've never experienced it elsewhere.
You use focus groups to figure out how to gain their attention? No? Okay.
We did it once, and that was the international stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That was 17, 18 years ago. And I've been trying at Hypothetical University to get the hypothetical faculty to do focus groups.
Just conversations.
Yeah. But
Like focus groups can sound intimidating, but like
but they
conversations.
Don't. They don't. Now, there are some new individuals at this Hypothetical University that are moving up through the hypothetical ranks in the Hypothetical School of Business. And they know this. And it's interesting because they took classes in our marketing majors under me. Undergraduate and MBA.
Yeah.
Wow.
They've been there a while.
So I've just kind of sat back, and at the Hypothetical University, I've just kind of sat back in the Hypothetical School of Business, and they're bringing it out. Yeah. And here's the interesting part. All the years that I was at this Hypothetical University, this Hypothetical College of Business, I was just like hitting my head against a brick wall.
Yeah.
But now that these other people have come along,
There's a light at the end of the
buying
tunnel.
into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do
I'm
you
very
think?
gratified to see that because it's happening.
It's happening.
Yeah.
What would you say one of the biggest things business college areas are failing at or not providing as good as they probably should be to future business people or students, current business students, future business professionals?
I think it would vary quite obviously how big the university is, the title of the university or brand, if you will, like quite obviously Northwestern, School of Business. You can't get much better. and you've got others, obviously, that are around, as opposed to maybe a mid-size university. Now, and then, of course, the smaller universities. But there is a trade-off in there, too, because the major universities, they have what they call a publish or perish kind of thing. And I don't know the exact numbers, but I know it's some of the major universities, they require their faculty to have anywhere from 2 to maybe 3 publications in major journals. And if they don't,
Wow.
yeah. And I saw and heard of a couple cases where they had brought in some new, young, untenured faculty members, and the students loved them because they were teaching them things that they needed, undergraduates, MBAs, and PhD candidates. But they didn't fulfill the 2 to 3 journal requirement. Another thing with larger universities, as you know, they have the large size classes. And when we have VIP day here at IUK, that's one of the things I bring up to the parents and the high school seniors that come in. I said, one of the things you want to ask or find out is, well, how big are the average classes?
Yeah.
Ours is only about 18 or 20.
Compared to Indiana and
Any
Bloomington
hundreds.
would be,
You're talking about in the hundreds.
Yeah.
I said, what kind of attention are you going to get? And the other thing I suggested too, and I've never seen this in a book anywhere, and I've had several individuals compliment me in the sense of giving them this idea. In fact, it was just an MBA student here locally that his daughter is applying to one of the southern schools and has a full ride in pre-med.
Wow.
Yeah. And I said, well, that's great. But I said, is that really where you want to be? I said, to go around, take her around to the other universities she's considering, and just go visit without telling them. Find out the feel for the university. Talk to other students. If you know you're going to be in pre-med and you know the area, then go talk to the people in that department. Okay? Because that's the only way you're going to really get a feel for it. But if you can sit down and talk to other students, because that's what I did when I went to Arkansas.
I don't know. Do a focus study with the other students.
That's right.
Exactly. That's what I did when I was at Arkansas, was to go and talk to other students that had been there longer than I had and try to find out, okay, who are the right people to get on my dissertation committee?
Sure.
Because the mistake I saw at other major hypothetical universities was the PhD candidates would get the top faculty in their own areas. Well, it turned out in one case, the 3 faculty he picked hated each other. It took forever for him to get his dissertation finished and cleared, I mean, by the 3. The other thing I noticed was these top-level faculty, they're not in there during the summer. They're out traveling or consulting. And the last thing you want to be, obviously, is bothered by someone who's just a PhD candidate and he wants to review the couple chapters.
Sure.
So as a result of that experience at Bloomington and in Arkansas, and hearing it from other individuals from other universities, was confirmed. And again, as far as I know, this is not written down anywhere. So it's kind of, you have to learn it on the fly. And I was able to move through mine very quickly without any problems. Common sense. You talk about common sense. You're going to love this. Every once in a while, I meet with some older gentlemen, retired gentlemen at McDonald's, and they always like to pull or rag on me in the sense of per feather. So they have fun, so we have fun. And I said, okay, look, you guys. I said, you said the students don't have any common sense. That's right. That's right. I said, okay, I know a person at another university. They have set up a course on common sense. And they're requiring all the freshmen to take this course. Oh, that's great. I said, yeah, they even had a textbook on common sense. And here comes the first class meeting. The students are there. The books are passed out. The syllabus is passed out. But there's no instructor. I said, why? I said, they couldn't find an instructor with any common sense.
That's great.
Oh man,
I love it.
So that's what's important in any situation. I don't
Sure.
care if it's high school, college. Common sense.
Yeah.
Get you a long way.
You're in an interesting spot with like the subjects you teach. You have to instruct entrepreneurs, and I'm a believer that entrepreneur is a DNA thing. I feel like some people have it and just some people don't. But if there's one thing people probably know about entrepreneurs is they don't like people telling them what to do, because if they did like that, they wouldn't want to be an entrepreneur and do it their way. What are some challenges from your standpoint of instructing entrepreneurs and teaching them, or trying to tell them like, hey, kid, I know more than you.
Good
Listen and go from there. I see that being a challenge. I can't relate. I don't know. It's weird, but
Well, I've learned real quickly you can't hit them directly.
sneak attacks.
Yes, there you go. And in those kinds of cases, and you do have them. I mean, let's face it. I don't care what profession you're in. I try to get them to talk. You know, why? What? So I ask a lot of questions and I listen. And invariably, there are little places here and there I can sneak a comment in. But I let them do most of the talking. Because there's no way I'm going to convince that person if I'm doing all the talking. They're going to tune me out in 2 minutes.
Somehow make it seem like it was their idea. Little psychology
Yeah,
going on.
it's a little psychology.
Yeah.
A lot of
Are
psychology.
you listening to
And
it?
that seems to work. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there are going to be some hard heads you'll never reach. I mean, it's frustrating because I remember the first time at Ball State, my first class, first semester, I'm thinking, I'm going to be the best instructor these people ever had. Okay. They did not want to have the best instructor they ever had. And that was a hard thing to understand, because I thought, okay, I'm going to have every student come in and see me in my office for 15 minutes. Half of them were just really upset at me because I did that. Okay?
That's funny.
So,
How dare you try to get to know your students?
yes.
Jeez.
Yes. It was interesting at Ball State, too, because when I gave grades on papers, I gave 2 grades. One was spelling, right, punctuation, and all that stuff. And the other one was the content. Okay, now this was before you had the laptops where you can make all the changes. So, all right. And I gave an F to one student. And he said, my mother would like to talk to you.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Great. I would not like to talk to your mother.
I'm sweating bullets. So she comes in.
This was at Ball State?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's hypothetical.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, of course.
A hypothetical, larger-ish
Ball
university in Muncie.
Yeah.
And she said, why did my son get this grade? And I went through and I said, see all those red marks, misspellings? You know. And she said, just shook her head. And I thought, uh-oh, here it comes. She turned to her son and she said, what the blank did you do with that dictionary I got you at Christmas? I could have jumped up and kissed her.
Wow.
Well, Dr. Rink, I think for a small business owner listening, there have been some great takeaways from today's conversation. I'd be really interested to hear Drew's thoughts after he comes to speak to your class. I think this continuing...
We could just have him listen to this. I don't even...
Yeah,
we
there
could just
you
have him
go.
listen to the
There you
podcast.
go.
Yeah.
Well, one...
They hear me too often. They don't want to hear me.
Yeah. Well, our podcast is called the Small Success Podcast, and our signature question that we ask all our guests who come on here is this: what is one small thing in your life that you do that has contributed to your success? And this could be anything. Could be something funny, could be a big serious thing. Maybe it's a daily habit that you do, but would love to hear what is one small thing that you do that contributes to your success.
I think I have to go back a bit to the marketing concept, because we had a faculty member who was not in business that I got to know. And he was senior to me, so he was giving me all kinds of pointers when I first started at IUK. And we talked about the marketing concept, or at least I was. And after I finished, he said, really, that's just the golden rule we learned in church school. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that stuck with me. I never heard that before. So I've learned as much about marketing from non-business people and non-marketing people. And so I'm always updating, but that little phrase, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, has always stuck with me. So I try to make sure I'm thinking that way all the time, even though there's sometimes I'd like to strangle get their attention. But if they don't want to have attention given, then there isn't much else you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you were talking about those entrepreneurs earlier, I mean, there are some that are quite stubborn. They're not going to listen to anything because, hey, it always worked before and it's going to work again and da-da-da-da. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what's the point in banging my head against a stone wall or brick wall?
Yeah. And it makes complete sense. The golden rule of life is that, and business is a part of life. So, of course, it
great.
relates to that as well.
It completely changed my whole thinking. And I said, that's what I want to be. And then honor the mentors. Okay? And the students are just stunned. This is something else I can't figure out because I keep mentioning at our hypothetical meetings in this hypothetical school of business, this hypothetical university, that I said, we know who our best undergraduate students are. So shouldn't we be marketing to them to get them in our MBA program? And I will ask students this, and they look at me like I'm nuts, which is normal. And I said, well, what's wrong? They said, well, nobody's ever told me that before.
Wow.
So I don't know what's going on. I mean, you got the pool right there. You can pick the best of the best out of the pool to be in your MBA program, which is not going to increase the number, but it's going to increase the quality. Now, thankfully, with this one person I was telling you about that took an undergrad and then MBA with us in marketing, they are in a position at this hypothetical school of business, at this hypothetical university, I'm wearing that word out, that is implementing this. So I'm just kind of sitting back. And I'm not saying anything. I got this big grin like a Cheshire cat, But it's great to see it implemented. And it's great to see the students responding.
Absolutely.
We have a great group of students out here who, like Anna out here. She's working on a team project with Brandon, and it's great to see them do that because I usually don't do group things. But in this advertising class, it works out well because then one can play off against the other and come up with a better mock-up for the advertising program that they're working on. So I would say that.
That's good.
It's a good one.
Well, as we wrap up today, I want to say on behalf of your students, at least the ones who've come through here, thank you. We appreciate your leadership. We appreciate your knowledge. We respect you. We're really thankful for your time today. So thank you, Dr. Rink, for coming on the Small Success Podcast. You are an incredible asset in our community, and we're grateful for you. From all of us here at Larissa Media, on behalf of Drew and myself, thank you for joining us today on the Small Success Podcast. I will have links in the show notes to information on this hypothetical university and more information about where you can find Dr. Rink. And as always, you can find more about us over at larissamedia.com. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.